Hey guys, it's RBB. I gotta tell you, I'm in a weird mood today. I wasn't feeling very creative, and I was awakened this morning by my text going off. Bring, 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 and I was like, "Ooh, what's the drama?" And turns out that a group of my friends were discussing how to clean their hardwood floors, and they'd been having this discussion for more than an hour. And I thought, "Oh my God, this is my life." So I got a cup of coffee and I'm like, that's it. I'm going outside. I'm going to touch grass. And you can probably hear the cicadas in the background. I was sitting there listening to the cicadas and stuff. And my train of thought is sometimes more like a train wreck. And I was like, sometimes you just gotta, remove yourself from the situation. Sometimes, you gotta unload and get rid of that bad stuff in your life. And, I haven't done a video in a couple days. We should talk about how to remove stuff. Like, this is how my brain works. Okay. So that's what we're going to do. Yeah, I'm not old. Shut up. Okay. So I found this picture of this dude on Pexels. I don't know who he is. Let's pretend his name is Skippy and he's our ex and we want to get rid of this guy. Okay. I actually don't know who this poor guy is. So we love this photo, but darn you, Skippy, you're always there ruining the scenery. We want to get rid of this guy. We're going to talk about a couple of ways to get rid of things in our pictures using everything from like kind of old school tools up to AI and things like that. Okay. Depending how long this gets, I may break this up into like a part 1 and a part 2 as it gets more difficult. But this guy, he meant nothing to us. He's going to be real easy to get rid of in our lives. Okay. So I duplicated the background because that's how I roll. We like to work non-destructively. And you're going to see this is going to help us because I'm going to come back and pull off an old copy. Sometimes we do go back to our exes and that is a terrible idea. But if you do, that's okay. Pull off a clean copy and then delete that one. Okay. Here's this dude. We want to get rid of him. Let's go ahead and zoom in because there's no reason to work so far away. Makes me a little nuts when my students work like 10 miles away from what they're actually doing. I'm like, what is the point of that? Okay. So, yep, we hate this guy. I don't know. What's he thinking about? Fantasy football, probably. Okay, probably. All right, we're going to get rid of this guy. We're going to look at a couple ways. One very easy way would be to use the spot healing brush, which we have used previously to get rid of some things. So the spot healing brush, if you recall, I basically just paint over an area. Okay, paint over old Skippy here. Let's try and make sure we get his feet so we don't leave phantom flip-flops. Okay, there we go. We got him pretty good. Now Photoshop's going to do its magic, and boom, he's gone. Ooh, that's nice. He's out of our lives. Now you'll notice if we zoom away, I've told you before that the human eye is really good at picking out patterns, and there's a little bit of a ghost, like it happens. We have baggage in our lives that stick around. We want to get rid of this and be better Photoshoppers. Is that a word? It should be. I'm going to switch to the other healing brush tool, spot healing brush tool, healing brush tool. Thank you, Adobe, for calling them basically the same thing. Now I'm going to, it's basically a clone stamp. So I'm going to Alt-Option, pick a target of clean sky here. And now this target area is going to blend the area I'm painting in with my target area. Okay, and I want to be careful I don't get too low and get another rocks here. Whoop, just like that. Oh, and then I almost dumped my coffee on myself. It's that kind of day, folks. Okay, so there you go. Now, even if we zoom out, it's pretty much gone. That's pretty good, okay? So now we've got that great memory of wherever this is, and we don't even remember that guy anymore. All right, that's an easy way. So, like we do, he's back in our lives again. Let's get rid of him another way. Going to duplicate that layer again. We're going to look at some other ways to get rid of this guy. He keeps coming back like a bad penny. Okay. Would anybody notice, like, if a penny came back? I don't know what a bad penny is, but that's one of those sayings. All right, this is another easy way. I'm going to grab the rectangular marquee tool, and I'm going to make a selection over this guy, including a little bit of the rocks, because, again, I don't want phantom flip-flops. All right, so now he's inside the marching ants. He is the active area. If I right-click on this now, I see down here I've got fill and I've got content-aware fill. Now, this is another weird Adobe thing. I don't know why they do this, but we are going to use content-aware fill, but we're not using this tool. It's really weird. Just believe me. We're going to go to fill, And when we click on fill, it's going to give us a menu saying, how do you want to fill this? At this point, we say we want to use content aware and say, okay. Okay, now it's going to almost always do a fantastic job. Sort of old school, boop. Okay, now it even replaced some rock there, so that's great. We could deselect. We could clone stamp and move some of these rocks and clean up that little fuzzy a little bit if we wanted to, but boom, he's gone. We could always zoom out again and see, does that look good? Yeah, that's pretty good. He's pretty much gone. Okay, so I hear you. Somebody's like, wait a minute, why wouldn't we just use content aware fill? Fine, I'll show you. Duplicate the layer again because he's back. We already told you no, Skippy. No means no. All right, so if I marquee select him again, and we're like, dude, you gotta go. And this time we right click and say content aware fill, it brings up a tool, a whole tool set, which sometimes can be better because it's more detailed, but I find this to be just more clicks. And remember, you have only so many clicks and then you die. So I'm already hating it because it's making me wait. Yeah. How about that sport team? Okay, so it brings it up and it's got a couple of, sample all layers, sampling area. It's all right, so let's just say, okay, let's assume that it's basically doing the same thing under the hood and we say, okay, let's see what it does. Sometimes this works great, and it's going to work great because I'm telling you that it's terrible, but let's see if it does a lousy job like it often does. Are you doing it? See, it's also just going forever. Apply or okay. That didn't actually do too bad of a job. So I hit Control D to deselect. Now he's got a little bit of dust where he was before. That's actually not terrible. Sometimes, and if the background is more complicated and you try to do that content aware fill, it almost like sucks in everything from around it and just sort of sews up the hole, and it's a very bizarre final result. So we still have to clean this up. So I don't love it. I would recommend doing the fill and choosing content aware. Okay. So boom, we've gotten rid of him again. And yet, he's back. Let's just clone stamp him this time. Let's duplicate our background. Okay. Now the good old clone stamping tool is right underneath the brush. This is the clone stamp tool. Okay, and what that does is it's going to allow us to pick a target. I'm going to make it a little bit bigger. I'm going to pick a target holding Alt or Option. So I want to clone this open sky and get rid of him. So I'm going to click on the open sky. Now you can see my brush is loaded up with open sky, and I am simply going to paint him out of our lives. You're gone. Uh-oh, I can already see that there's a bit of a ghost. See, there's sort of like a lighter color where he is. I'm going to change that. I'm going to pick a different area of sky. And just like with clone stamping, you may have to pick a couple targets to get this to work very well. I'll choose this side. This is really not loving it. It's harder to get rid of this time. Yeah, so that's good old clone stamp. Meh. It's not working all that great. Because I think if we zoom out, we're going to see that halo. It's like, yeah, it's like a big old poof, like you just exploded, and there's Skippy dust all over the place. But in theory, that could work. We could also clone stamp the hill bigger. We could make this a big old tower of rock and, entomb him in the stone. But that is another way to do it, the clone stamp. Let's see. Oh, you know what? Let's try just remove background. It's one of these guys, one of these tools down here. So let's bring Skipster back again. And you know what? That's not going to do it. The remove background is actually going to remove the background and not remove what's in here. So we could grab him and do like an AI generative fill. So we've looked at a couple ways to get rid of him. Let's pretend that one of these ways was successful and he's gone from our lives. Bye, Skippy. We are moving on. I said we are moving on. Okay. Anyway, let's move on. All right, here's our buddy. We've worked with this guy a couple of times. I went ahead and duplicated the background. I just wanted to show you what the AI fill will do. If I were to, I'm going to duplicate this background. I already did it to make it quick, but I'm going to duplicate the background. All right, and using AI, you can select an area. So I could select our Beetlebug here, and in my bar down here, generative fill. When I click on it, it's going to say, well, what do you want me to fill it with? I could fill it with whatever I wanted to. Let's say, I can't even think of anything. Potted plants. Can't think. Okay, let's say potted plants. So it's going to think it's going to do its magic. AI is going to go out and go grab some potted plant pictures, and it's going to replace what it recognizes as the object with potted plants. And generally it does a pretty good job. Now, before you freak out and, vilify AI, it's not really any different than what Photoshop was doing. It's like Photoshop removed this guy and we're okay with that. But if you say AI removed it, then people, get their tinfoil hats out and stuff. So let's see how this does. Boom! Don't park there. We got some potted plants, but look, contact shadow, everything looks great. And it's pretty good. I did it earlier and I put bags of garbage because I couldn't think of anything. So there we go. Those are big bags of garbage. But we could easily get rid of something in our image with the AI fill. Okay, you just have to think of something that would logically fill in that area. Like if you put kittens, okay, that would have to be one big old kitten. All right, so don't be afraid of AI. All it's doing is using, the collective imagery to do what Photoshop was basically doing before anyway. Okay, so that's that generative fill option for getting rid of something. And that could have been difficult if we we wouldn't have been able to do generative fill, and we could have clone stamped it, but it would have taken a while. So boom, this is pretty easy. Okay, moving on. If at any point you're like, this is getting hard, I think I'll stop. That's fine. These are all getting slightly more difficult. So this is somebody else's ex. They said, hey, get rid of this person. We don't like them anymore. Now, it's not as easy as Skippy because she is not silhouetted against the same background. So we could try what we did before. I could marquee select her. And I could do a generative fill and fill her in with, I don't know, beach cabana or something. But let's go ahead and see if our options before worked. Let's try fill, content aware fill, and see how it does. Pictures like this, I actually do tend to go old school and generally clone stamp because then I can control what it's going to fill it with. Let's see if this does a good job. Fill, 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 fill. Do, 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 do. That's not too bad. Okay. So yeah, that's not too bad. And we don't even have to zoom out. Now we know there was something there, but this could have been, an image, a trick of the light, but we could always heal this little bit of a ghost. Remember I've complained before that the human eye is really good at picking out patterns. And this is what NASA has not figured out yet when they keep passing off pictures of space. And we're like, that's the same thing duplicated. See, this little flotsam here is repeated right there. And in the beach, this little area is repeated right here. I'm sure that they're like, oh, it's good enough. We photoshopped out the UFOs, but the human eye picks that kind of stuff out. So I don't love that. I'm going to go ahead and duplicate the background and bring her back. And I'm going to go, yeah, it's harder work, but I'm going to go old school and clone stamp her out. Okay, so let me turn off the NASA version. Okay, so there are other ways, like I said, we could do this. We could do generative fill and things like that, but let's just do old school clone stamp. I'm going to zoom in a little bit. I like the clone stamp because I feel like I have a lot of control over what gets cloned and what doesn't and what I'm healing. So I'm going to make this a little bigger. And what I want to do here, not that big, golly. All right, so we're going to go in slices. So here we want to cover up her head with the ocean. Here we're going to cover up her shoulder and torso with, the waves, and then the wet part of the beach and the beach, okay? So we're doing this in layers. So if I'm on my clone stamp and I hold the Alt option and pick an area near her head. Now, I don't want to pick over here. So if I pick over here, I've got a lot of room to work without bumping into my own image. But this is a different perspective than close to her head. So instead, I'm going to click close to her head. And I'm going to sort of chew away this part of her head. Okay, now if we bump into where her head was, it'll start cloning that. So I'm going to go to this side and I'm going to grab this part of the ocean and I'm going to clone out. Now I can't go very far because see, I start cloning her own head again and we don't want that. Okay, so I'm going to have to, this isn't really fast, but it's very thorough and good. So I may have to pick a couple of spots. It's also that by doing it this way, it's going to avoid that duplication thing that our eye is real good at. Now I messed up a little bit on her head right here because see there's a little whoop swell of the ocean. Not a problem. I can go over here and grab the very edge of the ocean where it meets the horizon and very carefully just copy straight along and that is gone. All right, so let's get rid of her shoulders here. Let's grab some of this flotsam. Now, if this repeats, it's going to be really obvious. So we're gonna have to pick a couple of places, like we did with our beach pebbles. We're gonna have to pick a couple of spots to sort of chew away at this. And every time I pick a new area, all I'm doing is Alt or Option clicking on a new area. And for the most part, people aren't going to be able to say, hey, that's exactly the same chunk of beach. But when there's an obvious pattern like that and that, we want to change it. Okay. All right, we're going to call that good for a second. Let's get rid of this part here in the water, in the, where you do that skimmy board surfy thing. Yeah, obviously I'm real good at that since I use those kinds of words. Darn it. Alt, Option, click. Do it. Okay. So now I'm cloning this area. Oop, ran into some other stuff. Clony, clony. Let's go from this side. Clony, clony. Yeah, it's prone to some errors. And if you're not careful, let's get some more of this little flotsam area here. If you're not careful, it'll look terrible. So this does take a little more work, but when you do it right, it looks pretty good. And it's pretty hard to tell that you Photoshopped something out if you did it right. Okay, if you didn't and you get that weird ghost, that's different. All right, so here we go. She's mostly gone. You can also lower the opacity. If I just want to blend this a little bit, I can always lower the opacity and I could grab this area right here and turn my opacity down and blend, and it just, it's much more subtle. That's pretty good. Okay, I'm gonna put my opacity back up before I forget. Let's clone stamp out this part. Oop, click. Okay, clony, clony, clony. Now I don't mind that these little stones repeated because they really did repeat. And we're gonna get some clean areas of the beach, maybe from a couple of spots near her. And get rid of any sign that she was ever here. Okay, oop, duplicated weirdness. You don't want to go too far away from your target because the size of the sand here is very different than the size of the sand there. This might be a good place to do a lower transparency, to lower the opacity here so that any of my duplicated areas just sort of blend in. All right, that's pretty good. Now, if you see anywhere it's like, hey, duplication, you can always, spend all day doing this and make it perfect. It kind of depends on what your results need to be. So there we go. We removed something that was a little more difficult. We can even zoom back out. We removed something that was a little bit more difficult by using the clone stamp. And as I always say, if this was really for a client or something, I might take more time and make this a little more perfect. But yeah, she's pretty much gone from our lives. She's moved on with Skippy. Okay, so we went from this to this. Okay, and at a distance, you can look and see if you see any repetitive patterns. If you do, that's repetitive, but we didn't do that. That was God. God did that. God Photoshopped that, or NASA, one or the other. All right, so that's gone. Let's move on to something more difficult. Again, if any of this is getting above your pay grade, you can just bow out. That's cool. Just like the video and move on and, tell all your friends. All right. So this image is not mine, and I've been using this in class for years, and I don't know where I got it. So if this is yours, thank you. This is just for educational purposes. So there's a lot of things we might want to get rid of if we were going to use this image. The first one, of course, would be Mickey Mouse, because Disney will, sue a little old lady for any in fractions there. So let's get rid of Mickey. So I'm going to use the clone stamp because it's such complications behind him, like the cisterns in front of him, there's plants behind him, and Lord knows there's all kinds of mess going on here. So let's use the clone stamp. I'm going to make my brush a little smaller. And to do this, I am going to I want this doorway to just continue down like he's not even there. So I'm going to hold Alt or Option, and I'm going to click right on the edge where the wall turns into the doorway. Okay, so I'm going to click right there on the edge. Now you can see my cursor is loaded up with wall. Okay, and I'm on a 100% opacity. Now if I paint up and down until I get too low and run into where his ears were, all right, I have basically replaced Mickey with open doorway. And there's a little bit of a mess up here. Again, I could pick maybe this blue part here. Depends how, oh, no, my brush is too big. That's the problem. Okay, I could pick this part right here, line this up a little better. Okay, so you can go back in and fix these things. Don't be lazy. Because, I mean, some of this stuff I kind of rush because it's just, a tutorial and showing you how to do things. But I would not really leave this stuff because that would make me crazy. And Lord knows we don't need that. Okay, so that was basically showing you how not to do that. Let's turn that one off and let's duplicate this background and clone stamp him properly. And with clone stamping, you don't have to get rid of every single pixel, even if it's a Disney, okay? So I'm going to pick this target up here, like I said, the edge of the door here. I'm gonna lower this down, line it up carefully, okay? And using both sides of this door here, look, I can get rid of a lot of him. And if I had like a minute to get rid of something, this is probably good enough, right? Because people aren't gonna be like, that's Mickey's foot. But if you have a whole minute, let's go ahead and fix it. I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm going to grab the edge of this doorway, and I'm going to come down here and get rid of Mickey's ear. Okay. Now, hey, you just destroyed the plant. No problem. I'll grab the plant from right here and put that plant back. Good enough. Okay. Uh-oh, Mickey's over here in the window. Let's grab non-Mickey window. Get rid of him. And you can leave that in there as an Easter egg and just risk the wrath of Disney if you want to, but I'm not going to. This is really little, so I'm going to zoom in and do this with some precision. I'm going to make my brush smaller. I'm going to clone stamp the top of this, the edge of this little cistern right here. The word of the day is cistern. All right, now I've got even a little bit more to work with. So I'm going to click that same area again and get rid of Mickey's foot. At some point, you're going to have diminishing returns and be like, dude, that's good enough. I'm going to click on this edge of the planter thing. Okay. And at some point, it's good enough. If my imagery is so bad that people are like, hey, is that 4 pixels of Mickey Mouse's foot? You've got larger problems, right? Okay. We've got some areas to fix there. This is what happens when you rush, RBB. Just do it right. Practice what you preach. I know. Hey, it was this or talk about cleaning floors. Okay, so he's gone. Other things that you might want to get rid of, and using the skills we've talked about right now, like I could just give you a quiz here. Let's say we want to get rid of this running water, so it's not a dead giveaway, it's a still image. We could clone stamp. What else could we use? Yes, you in the back. Yes, you're right. We could use the healing brush tool, which is like the clone stamp. If we clicked on the healing brush tool, we could say we want to get rid of this. We want to blend it in with this area, and boopy, boopy, boop, boop. It gets rid of it pretty well. Okay, there's a lot of things we could do. And yes, you'd want to be careful and not do that. What did I just say? Don't do that. And maybe clone stamp and get rid of this area. But again, those little pixels probably aren't going to bother somebody. There are actually 2 people in this picture, okay? And we could just, you know what, let's Bob Ross her. Let's make her a happy little plant. We're going to go to the clone stamp. She's now a happy little tree. Let's zoom in. You're like, how did you see those people? I've been using this picture a long time. All right, I'm going to clone this potted plant right here. And guess what, lady? You are now a happy little tree. Okay, boom. And that guy, it doesn't even matter. We could just grab anything. He matters. He matters to somebody. Well, we could just, he's gone. Get rid of his feet. Click here in the road, and then boop, he's gone. Gone enough. All right. Okay. Now, I use this picture a lot in class because this allows me to do a lot of things. I can remove the background and put in some sky. In fact, we'll probably use this again in another video talking about color correction and turning these into some other color and getting rid of Mickey Mouse. So this picture is really good. So if you're out there and this is your picture, thank you so much. You have helped hundreds of students learn how to Photoshop. All right, the last one we're going to talk about, because holy crud, we're getting into 25 minutes. Is if we were removing something like this glass, a lot of our tricks are not going to work. A lot of our faster tricks. If we just grab this guy and go old school and say, let's fill this, fill content aware. Watch it work perfect. I did this earlier today and it didn't work at all. Because it looks at everything around it and like we don't want it to fill with this, you know, ice or the sky. Like it's kind of weird. Yeah, see, it's got some ice and wood texture and that did not do a very good job. So I'm going to deselect that. I have tried a bunch of different techniques with this one this morning, including like generative fill, but it's going to be really hard to match the lighting. I think going old school might be about the only way to do that with this guy. So what I would do is really take a good bit of time with my clone stamp. Now this is a huge picture, so I'm going to have to make a pretty big brush. Boop, 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 boop. But just take a while and do it right. Like click here on the edge, remove part of that glass. And it's still going to take a lot of our skills and tools. There are some areas where we're going to have to, we're going to have to paint over and correct. Okay, hey, let's do this. Let's make that little. See how I could only use a tiny little bit because otherwise I was going to pick up part of this jar and part of this one. So this is actually going to take, you know, some skill. Down here, don't forget, we want to get rid of this water. What happens if we use the healing brush? Let's try that. Not the spot healing. Yeah, let's use the healing brush. And this is what we want to get rid of, but let's blend it in with this. So we want it to look like this. This is interesting. I have not tried this. See, this blurs. It doesn't completely clone and copy it, but it sort of blends the two together. And that's not terrible. Okay, hopefully people are like, wow, what a great sunset, and are not caught up on, you know, that's reflection doesn't exactly match. All right, so we could play with this for a while. Like this would probably take me maybe half an hour to get this completely gone in a way that I was happy with. But between the clone stamp tool, we could clone stamp out this area. You could even try generative fill if you wanted to. I don't think it's going to work very well because the lighting would be odd. But using the clone stamp, the healing brush, the spot healing brush, the skills that we've learned, you could get rid of an object like this. Or, like we did the other day, you would grab a different item from somewhere else and plop it in there. That's all AI is doing. All right? So there we go. We've gone from super easy and getting rid of Skippy, who just keeps coming back, and using a variety of tools to remove things from our work, from easy to more difficult. So the end thing is here, and holy moly, we're coming up on 30 minutes. Sorry about that. Thank you, anybody who stayed this long. Please, of course, like and subscribe and all that good stuff. Pass this on to your friends and fellow students. But the thing is, it's not always going to be an easy fix. This guy's easy, 2 clicks of a button and he's gone, okay? This is not an easy fix and it's going to take some of your skills. So take the time to do it right, okay? Do it with a good heart, do it right. And that's it. Thank you guys who've stuck around the whole time. I appreciate it. Yeah, if there's anything you'd like to see covered, or if there's an image you're like, hey, how do you get rid of this? I will be happy to help you from new school to old school. All right, guys, thanks for sticking with me. Have a great day and get those hardwood floors cleaned. Be well.